and welcome back to our programming. We're here on behalf of Amudim, Unite to Heal. The website is unitetoheal.com. I was just informed last year we had over 1 million people watching the programming throughout the entire day and a half of programming. So we definitely want to see if we can do a lot better than that. They raised $6 million. Now, if the lottery just the other night can go from a few thousand to a few 100,000 to 1.9 million, and the Jews can raise 6 million, so we definitely have to see if we can do a lot more than that. So head over to unitetoheal.com and please support everything, all the amazing work that Amudim is doing. Welcome back to our show. We had a program last year called Off the Record with some amazing producers, arrangers. This year we decided to take it up a notch. It is my privilege to be here in the studio and bring this to you guys. Some of the biggest names back when there weren't singers every other day dropping albums. There was Mordechai Ben David, there was Avram Fried, there was a guy called Karl Bach, maybe a few other groups, but individuals there was very few. And we are fortunate to have with us some of the first individuals, superstar singers, who grew up in choirs back in the day, launched their own solo careers. First off, we have Srully Williger with me. We have Shlomie Dachs, I'm sure all of you know.
Pleasure to be here.
And composer, producer, and arranger and choir leader, Yitzy.
What an honor.
So, I mean, the fact that I'm here in the room with you really speaks volumes. I had each and every one of your cassettes. Now, you produced Mendy Wald's albums, as well as Ira Heller and many other singers. So I had Mendy's first album, which I'm sure was probably your first big production at that point, right?
It was my production, but I mean, I was involved in albums before that. Srully.
And Srully's album, Hu Klal. I had a cassette for that.
His real first.
Yeah, the voice
album.
it was the voice of a new generation before the millennia. And then One Day at a Time, that big striking pink cover with that clock over there.
Who was first, Shlomie or Mendy?
I actually think you were first.
No. Who was after I came out with?
After you,
Klal,
I think might have been Mendy and then
I think
Shlomie.
Mendy.
So I think I have all the albums. You worked on Mendy Wald's album. I believe that was probably your first big production.
Mendy Wald was my first big production, but I worked with Srully and Shlomie prior to that. Srully, I was involved in the album. I composed, I believe, 6 to 7 songs.
So I have Mendy's album at home. I found it today. Srully's, of course, the voice of a new generation.
Right.
So that, of course, had Hu Klal on there and Tata.
And now your voice is probably of a new generation as it
it
changed after you reached that next level in life. And Shlomie's One Day at a Time, that strikingly pink cover with that alarm clock on it.
That's right.
Hamalach and Chamol and One Day at a Time, of course.
It's crazy. And
Yera.
So Yitzy produced Mendy's album, and Yitzy was a new producer at that time. Yerachmiel produced your album. You were... or his name was on the production.
Correct.
And Yerachmiel you were the first solo act that he produced at that time.
Correct.
And Yochi was a new producer at that time.
You really did your homework.
We're talking about 7 to 8 years before Shweki even released his debut album.
More than 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about when the time the album came out. Yeah. So the album came out in 94. I think Shweki came out in 2001.
Yaakov Shweki grew up on our music.
That's true.
Right.
We all grew up on your
It's
music.
pretty amazing.
It's pretty funny when you talk to singers nowadays. You know, you meet Benny Friedman, Eli Marcus, Mordechai Shapiro. They grew up on everything that you guys sing.
It's actually humbling when I meet a lot of them and they tell me that they grew up and were inspired by us paving the way for entertainers who have talent to put out their music. It's very humbling and it's a wonderful feeling. It really is.
So recording an album, as we know, is a very big expense, even today. That's right, 2022, 2023, it is a big expense. How big was it for the two of you, and then we'll come back to Yitzy, but how big of an expense was it for you guys to even consider, getting the money together to record an album?
Right, so even, 28 years ago, it was still in the $60,000, $70,000 range to produce an album. That's even before you put away money for advertising. You were looking at it wasn't a $25,000 story.
And you didn't have that proof that, I can make it back by performances.
No, not at all.
Because it didn't exist yet.
Correct.
Shlomie?
So I had a very unique story where right when I was coming out, somebody new entered the business and changed the entire business, a game changer. His name is Izzy Taubenfeld, Olav Shalom, Sameach Distributors. Mm-hmm. And Yochi put me in contact with him. We had a meeting, the three of us, at Gidon Levine's studio.
GYL.
In Borough Park, GYL
Not
Productions.
Flatbush.
And we met, and he was such a special person. And Yochi and I basically convinced him that I might be the next big thing. And he was looking for a new guy to put out. And believe it or not, he did something that was unprecedented. He wrote me out a check that covered the entire expense of the album.
Yeah.
And he in return printed, I think, 10,000 CDs, or then it was cassettes and then the CDs.
Later CDs, yeah.
And we hoped that he would run out of them and then order more, and the rest is history. And it was such a relaxing to know that you didn't lose money and you already had your money up front. It was unprecedented. But albums were a fortune. Like Srully said, $75,000, $80,000 it cost even then.
I still remember I came to Borough Park from Montreal for Hanukkah, ran to 13th Avenue, grabbed a cover of Country Yossi magazine, and the skinny guy is sitting there on the cover smiling at me.
With my big tinted
His
glasses.
big tinted- that's right. Srully, so you didn't have the right connections then.
It was a few
It was
years
earlier.
before then, because when Izzy Tablefeld Oliver Shalom did come into the business, I had the same thing,
Ah.
but I put out
At
one or
that
two
point,
albums
it was what,
before
We Can Make
then.
It Right or not?
It was, I'm not sure which
I
album,
think
but
it
it
was
was
We Can Make It Right.
Make
We
It
Can
Right.
Make It
So
Right.
he did cover,
No.
the expenses, and obviously Baruch Hashem, he did make back the money. It was a decent investment at that time as well. So
There
Yes,
was one advantage back then.
Yes.
There was a lot less copying in terms of
Yeah, because you had
CDs.
to get a double cassette recorder,
Right,
buy a
double
blank cassette,
cassette and
put it
copy
in,
it, yeah.
press record and play at the same time, let it play itself out, then flip them over and do it again.
And it's interesting that you're bringing that up, the difference between today and yesteryear. I tell that to performers. I tell them, on one hand, we were very few, and we were busy, and we were all over the place. Today, you have many, many more entertainers, many more singers, but today it's a different world. The only way a song, Huklal, or any song of mine, Hamalach, became famous was only if the distributor went to the store in Chicago or Minneapolis, bought the CD and listened to it. Otherwise,
There was no even PlayStations in the store.
There was no internet. There was no Spotify. There was nothing. There was no Instagram. There was nothing that you
No
could
YouTube.
immediately.
That's right.
Today, the minute a song is done, it could. On the other hand, there's so much more copying and people downloading, and you make it. It's hard to make a living. It's an expensive business card today to put out a CD, but it's a different world. Instant today.
Yitzy?
We didn't have that.
people then, I mean, and I was in the business at that time, people then could make a CD, and if Baruch Hashem was successful, let's say it sold 25,000 copies or 30,000 copies, which was doable back then if it was a very successful album, you could actually make a living from a CD. You didn't really have to sing a chasana at night, pretty much.
Absolutely.
You could literally make $150,000 off sales of an album.
Crazy.
And that's a decent parnasa for a mishpachah back then. And because of all that copying, now the performers have to rely more on performances to actually make their living.
Weddings and concerts.
Right.
And
I remember Avrami Garari told me that once people started copying, at that time he says the whole business changed, and now everybody has to perform each night to actually make a living when you could have made a living off a CD. And truthfully, all that Geneva was incorrect. It wasn't right, and it caused the singer to have to work a lot harder in the performance end rather than just be a solo singer on a CD album.
And sometimes find the business to support his family on the
Right.
side.
It's so
By the way,
that all changed.
If you think of that, it's pretty funny that you guys are selling albums that today's biggest singers don't touch the numbers. I mean, Avram Fried, Mordechai and David are not selling 25, 30,000 albums anymore. The average listener doesn't know that the average album barely breaks 10.
it depends on we don't know the spot. There's different.
You're right. We
Spotify
don't
numbers.
know the
But
streaming numbers.
This thing, Chas v'Shalom, Geneva,
But streaming is not owning.
Can't accuse everybody. But Lamaisa,
No,
my
no.
first couple of albums, it was before it was when CDs came out, was when the real copying started. Like
It
you
was
were saying
about
before,
96,
the
97.
tapes were very
Yeah.
hard.
Right,
to
you had
tape
to
it.
double-
It was when the CDs came out, that's when the real copying thing started. And for a good few years, that's when even Mordechai and David, I'm afraid they all made promos about, if you remember back in the day,
sure I do.
please, like they were begging people not to do it. So that was a tkufa, like my 3, 4, like number 3, 4, 5 album. It was like, like Jackie Mason said, no one sells sweet and low. Everyone just takes it from the,
the restaurant.
Yeah, it was like my tapes
The
were
Heinz
sweet and low.
ketchup packets.
My songs were everywhere, but no one bought an album.
It's like Rav Belsky, my Rebbe in Tarvadas. I mean, he was one of the few that came out strong. Would anybody go into a grocery store and just take a box of cereal or milk out of the store? He felt you're taking from the, if you copy it. You bought a CD, it's very nice. So there are Terim, in the family, make an extra one for your family.
I had this discussion with Gideon Levine, by the way, many years ago. I wanted another copy of Best of the Best. And we had a Charlotte, and we asked people. Remember Camp Tarvadas, where Bluth was there? Sure. And remember Shlomie said that, I think we asked him at camp one year, and he said, if you have one at home and you want one for the car, then that would be okay, because you paid for one to use in the family, and you can't use in both locations. But even when I asked Gideon, he's like, I would still appreciate a phone call or an email or a snail mail asking me, can I make a copy for my car?
So I will tell you a great story. I had a child, an 8th grader, call me once from St. Louis, and asking me permission. You hear his mother in the background. Tell Shlomie Dachs you love his music and you'd like to use it, make a copy of his cassette. I think it was, right. Or maybe it was a CD. And he said to me, "Can I have permission?" So I said, "You know what? Put your mother on the phone." I call his mother. I get his mother on the phone, and I said, "Give me your address. I'm going to mail him one." So she says, no, I didn't want a free one. I didn't want you to mail one. I said, let me just mail him one. Someone who has such chen to call me to ask me, if I say yes on the phone, then he'll tell all his friends, oh, Shlomie Dachs said it's okay to copy my CD. So I said, let me mail him one with a little note, thank you, enjoy my music. And now I didn't tell you can go copy it, but you deserve a beautiful autographed CD. And I sent him one. But it changed the whole business. It really, really did.
So the fact that you guys ruled the 90s and 2000s is amazing. But all of your careers started a lot earlier than that. You were all child soloists. You were all in choirs as kids. We have Amudei Sheish Olam Srully Williger, as Shmuel Borgel of Shalom put out a few years back. What was it? Superstars of yesteryear. Avram Fried, Srully Williger, Mendy Wald, etc., etc. Shlomie was in Silver Zemmer. Of course.
I was in Amudei Sheish
also,
but it's okay.
Right. By the way, there's that embarrassing picture. There's an embarrassing picture of Shlomie with the blue V-neck, right? Blue turtleneck. Silver Zemmer and Amudei Sheish and Yitzy both also in Silver Zemmer. Pardon me.
I was also in Miami. I don't even know how I had time to be in yeshiva.
Really?
And I was in Muncie Boys Choir. My
And
mother
Country
just
Yossi.
wanted me. Country Yossi.
And
I
he
sang
patched me.
I sang Then He Patched Me.
This is the star
I just wonder
soloist.
how I was in yeshiva and how any principal allowed me to do it. I don't know how I had the time. I thank my mother for doing this.
And a
for
bunch
me.
of
It
years
set me up.
later, he's a Zayda. What can I tell you? Srully, how did it start
Hashem.
for you? How did you get to your first choir gig? Were you
Were
you always singing around the house?
Yeah, I was in Yeshiva Tarvadas, and Shmuel Borgel was the assistant principal.
That's how he
And
poached
he had
all
a
those
regular,
children.
right? Yep. And same thing.
Really?
Good thing.
And he-
Beisakov, Rabbi Yerucham Shapiro, we used to
So he
rehearse.
had a regular yeshiva, I guess, and I was singing back then, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old.
Was it something your parents had to think a lot about?
My father, Olav Shalom, was very makbid on certain things. He did not let me perform, meaning
So there's no live performance.
even Silva Zem, right? It was never a live performance. I don't know the cheshbon.
Really?
But it was for choirs, yeah. Not for. I never performed in Amudei Sheish. I never performed Silva Zemer.
So you're part of the recordings and the rehearsals.
When he was Sivas Hashem Boys Choir, didn't either recordings, yeah. 613
We were
Torah
also
Avenue.
613 Torah
Right.
Avenue. We did Bar Midbar and Devarim.
Bamidbar, Pirkei Avos, and Tefillah. I did.
And it's the first time ever that I got a check. I got paid to do it.
They
Anybody
paid.
else?
They paid.
By the way, did you see
Yossi didn't
recently?
pay.
I don't know. I saw most of the music. They redid the graphics for 613 Torah Avenue. They put it on one album. I don't know if it's a USB or a CD, but and this is after what, like 40 years?
That was 613
Remember,
Torah
it's
Avenue.
time to learn to run.
sure.
That I remember. Yesterday's daf I don't remember, but I remember a song from 30 years.
The Dorm's not so easy, Shlomie. Your Gimel wasn't that bad. Don't worry about it.
And to Yossi's credit, Yossi is involved also very much in getting singers to put some of their older albums back on Spotify and other things
I actually
that people
worked
that
with
never
everybody
heard.
here.
And
I worked with Shlomie.
Every time I get a $5 check in the mail, I have to thank you.
That's right. You got that 49 cents the other day, PayPal?
Yes.
The stamp was worth more than the check.
Shlomie, your parents were makbid about you being in choirs and performing, or not really?
No, and they allowed me. They felt it's always a catch-22. I have parents even today that call me, should I send my kid, my child to to be part of a choir or not? And you have to know your child. It could be the greatest opportunity. You gain confidence. By the time I was bar mitzvah, I could lane in front of 1,000 people. I was very confident. It was very good for me. My mother and my father, they wanted me to. I went to Polanco, Mexico with Yerachmiel. I went with Silva Zemmer. All over the place we went. And it was a very, very good experience. Brooklyn College was very much easier, local. But I did perform. But you have to know your child if it's right for them. You really do.
You didn't sing live, but were you on any of the album covers, your picture, or not?
I was the gorilla in that movie.
I was going to ask that.
6'2" at 8 years old.
No, the Amuda Sheikh, that picture one with the double album that opened up.
Yeah.
The one that I was on, that me and Shlomie, I don't know if I'm correct, English, Shlomie and I, whatever. We had that album it disappeared after like a year or two. Shabechi Yerushalayim. You know, Shabechi.
Is that the black album?
We stumped him. He doesn't know.
So
Did that have Baruch HaGever on it?
no, Baruch HaGever was
the
his.
next one?
Was the one before.
Before
This
that.
one had Avram. I sang solo. I sang duet with Avram Fried, and even those days in technology, we didn't even have to be in the studio together at the same time.
Wow, really?
Yeah, in the
Amazing.
early 80s.
The one
Right.
solo that I also did with Avram, he was still a bacher. He was still single, but he was still much older than us. I don't know how much older. I never saw him in the studio even then. Never even saw him. It's so interesting how they do it.
I don't remember which song it was. It was I think that was one I did. I think
Also, I think I did with him.
Asher Barasa Gilarina Dihitza.
That was a hit at weddings, you remember that?
So he put that on a Shmuel Borger put that on that Mudashesh album.
And Yitzy, you?
I was in Silva Zemmer. Now
Your parents were strict about you being in a
No,
choir?
they loved it. It was great. It was
Were
absolutely.
you playing accordion by the time you were in the choir?
I was playing accordion for 2 years prior to that.
Is that
I
crazy?
was 9 years old, playing accordion. My mother, Lashon, was very into me playing accordion. It was really cool. I remember the teacher, Miss Launer. So she would come every Friday and teach me like new songs from these books. And I'd play like a Beethoven piece, and she'd give me these notes. And she said practice for the week. And at the end of the next week, she'd come like upset down after the lesson, say to my mother, she'd say, I don't understand. He's changing all the notes of the Beethoven piece. Who does he think he is? He thinks he's a composer or something? That's what my mother.
Pretty funny.
It was very funny. And at that time, I was playing around with songs. I still remember my first song, and I showed my second song to Shmuel Brazil when I was 11.
Wow.
And then after that, I started composing many songs. But I still remember Silva Zemmer.
I was in Camp Darvadas with Shlomie, actually. Shlomie's probably the one from all of you that I go back the most with, because he was a staff member when I was a camper. 91.
How old are you? Because you look a little older than me.
Yeah. We're not. This show isn't about me. It's about you guys. It was 91, and there were a couple campers. There was a guy, Stein, from Muncie, and he was a Silva Zemmer boy.
Right.
And a few years later,
That's for 17 summers.
Yeah,
17 summers.
So I remember
my cousin Yossi Simchon was a camper of yours.
I remember Shlomie showing Avram Rosenberg some recordings. This one with the double cassettes, the two cassettes, one after the next,
Yeah.
or even separate tape recorders. And Shlomie would record himself singing on one tape recorder, and then harmonize himself,
Really?
and take a second tape recorder and record that one. This is before double cassettes, and he would play it for Avram Rosenberg
I can't believe
at
you
the
remember
choir
that.
practices. I still remember.
He didn't take one song of
He
mine.
didn't- Yeah, he ended up buying 4 songs from me, Avram Rosenberg, eventually.
Which ones?
One of them Shlomie sang. It was called, at that time, it was called Oy Di Shama Biarei, and he changed it to Eitz Chayimi Lamach.
And it worked.
It's volume 6, it was there. But I had a great time in Silva Zemmer. I was solo. I never got the solos, but it was.
But
really,
that's why Yitzy is good now as a choir leader, because now that he has his own choir, he's like, I gotta give each kid a solo. Like I didn't have solos. I gotta give each kid a solo.
Before Tzolov Zemmer, he was a different choir. Do you know that?
Ushmo Borg.
Avram Rosenberg.
Shmuel
Gan
Rosenberg.
Yisrael Boys Choir?
Tzivas Hashem
Tzivas
Boys
Hashem.
Choir.
You were-
Really?
You were
So
Tzivas Hashem?
that my father let me perform.
Really?
Yeah,
You just.
for Tzivas Hashem.
We're gonna have to erase that earlier
Chabad-
part and come
Chabad
back. And
connection.
say,
I'm not sure if it was Tivus Hashem Boys Choir or
Tzivas
Gan
Hashem.
Yisrael
No,
Boys
Gan
Choir.
Yisrael's a camp.
Okay, so I think it was Gan Yisrael. Okay,
sang
either
on
way,
Gan Yisrael
I
album,
sang
The
on
Little
Gan
Bird.
Yisrael, Little Bird as
Yeah,
well.
but the,
Oh,
his
wow.
name of the choir was Sivas Hashem Boys Choir.
And out of the blue, I'll tell you a cute thing. About 10 years ago, all of a sudden I get in the mail a beautiful big picture of me as a 10 or 11-year-old getting Kaishal Bracha from the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Really?
And you see Abraham Rosenberg in the back. And we performed at one time we had that evening in Crown Heights at a Kaishal Bracha at a Matzah Shabbos, I think it was. And all of a
was a
sudden,
Matzah Yom Tov. It
it
was
was a
a
Matzah
Matzah
Yom
Yom Tov,
Tov,
yeah.
and all of a sudden I get that picture in the mail that you see
Who
me.
sent it to you?
Someone Lubavitcher who goes through Kola. They go through all the
Gem,
archives,
the Gem.
Gem.
Yeah, so I
archives,
sang-
and I
I
have a
sang
big
that
blown
night.
up. It's beautiful.
Yeah. What can we do? That will help bring Mashiach. We do our mitzvah without.
Wake up,
Oh,
Yidden,
Mashiach,
come
how
back.
we want you now. How long for you
That
must
was
be
a
wait-
great
So we
song.
sang that for the.
So basically, everybody was in the choir and got bit by the music bug and said, "Hey, let me see if I can actually."
I had such
Support a family
I had such
with
fun in Silver Zem. It was really amazing. We went to so many concerts. We performed with Mordechai Ben David in Brooklyn College.
I
We
still
went to-
remember, by the way. I'm sorry for interrupting. Silva Zimmer was in Montreal in late '80s, early '90s. They came for like a Hanukkah thing, and I was like, Silva Zimmer. Like I never even heard Silva Zimmer coming to a small back town. Then it was back then. But like when Yerchmiel came in '91 or '92, and like Yitzy Spinner was there with Ari Golding, I was like, oh my gosh. Like it was like a Matzah Shabbos on this amazing concert hall on top of a hill. But growing up, I didn't have concerts like you guys had around the clock here in the tri-state area. It was once in a blue moon, somebody came, and you were lucky enough if you were allowed to go. Though we didn't have to worry about yeshivas and Meis Yaakovs being worried. Where'd you go last night? Okay, you're suspended. Get out of here. So, Hu Klal, debut album, Voice of a New Generation. How old were you, Srully?
I was, I think, 25 or 26.
And you were married already.
Yes.
Because my Rebbeim said, don't put out an album till you're married. So
You
I
too.
waited. I came out with Hanukkah after I got married. I got married in June. Hanukkah, my album was out.
You're that young.
25,
Yeah, but
26.
you
yeah.
recorded songs before that. I mean, you did
did.
Kunzit's albums. You sang Srully at the first concert, the Miami Experience 1. You sang it at that concert.
Both of you sang a Miami Experience.
Yeah, I sang Get Married Experience before Hu Klal. I think I sang
Yeah, you
Hu
did,
Klal
before Hu
it
Klal,
came
yeah.
out,
A
right?
year before.
That's amazing.
Before the album
I remember
came out.
when the Miami Experience 1 came out, the double album with the gold cover over there. We camped over with us, and it was like, Shlomie Dachs, the counselor, he's singing
The funny
on the
thing
album.
is about me and Srully, I look back now, Color War, when I was older as a staff member, and
Yeah.
we're picking teams, and you're looking for who you want who's going to be the best baseball hitter, or who's going to be. They used to flip for us who's going to be.
As-
He's
as
on one
kids.
team as
Really?
kids
Yes,
because he
as-
You
needed
were
a
always
soloist
on
in the choir.
reverse
We were
teams.
always on opposite
we were the
teams.
only campers that were picks.
The question is, did one of you win more than the
I
other
was
one?
picked all the time.
But did your
first.
team win?
What?
My team won every
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
but he says
But
he was
I
picked
was
first.
picked first.
How
Yeah,
he
but-
knows that, I have no idea, but it's okay. It's like Rabbi Nassim Newman used to go, I heard from the judges that we won Color Award.
Right.
What do we want, Shlomie? What do we want? Come on.
So it was an amazing thing to be picked for choirs, and we would flip. Okay, you Srully, I got Shlomie. So it was nice, like looking back, you know.
That's amazing. Do you remember Eliezer Benowitz in Camp There with us or not?
Sure.
Eliezer Benowitz was a famed Miami Boys Choir soloist. He was in the Young Experience too. He sang My Zadie with My Shias.
father's a Rav in my
His
neighborhood,
father-
right
and his
across the
father was the
street. Yeah,
camp
right.
rabbi, the camp rav that year.
Yeah.
And he was this shy kid. And we tried to coach him into choirs. He was very reluctant. He was
He's
very
starting
shy.
to break in now. He wants to sing at weddings. He's
Excuse
just sent
me,
me
he
some
lives in
clips.
Thomas
he lives
River.
in Thomas River.
I know what he does for a living. He came to my house to take care of me, but he gives voice lessons.
Yeah. Oh wow.
I'm serious. Eliezer Benowitz, amazing class. So you're 25 and you're putting all this money into your debut album, and I just found out something that I never knew.
Uh-oh.
I found out that you almost had a different producer on your album.
Oh, yeah?
Supposedly somebody wrote 6 songs, and you guys were like working together
Sounds
before
like
your
Srully doesn't
before your
remember.
Achmiel got in the
It's
picture.
ringing a bell.
Is
It's
that
ringing a bell,
true?
for sure.
And originally, Srully approached me, and we almost signed the contract to work together. I remember that his father was there overlooking the contract. I was young, and Srully was
So who wrote the
a drop
contract if you were too young?
I think I definitely put down some of the clauses, and his father was reviewing it, and we were ready to sign. And Srully got back to me, and rightfully so. And I till this day I still get it. He said at that time, and he thought about it. He said, "Yitzy, you only produce music, but you don't put people on stage. You've never really done that.
Right.
So he decided to go to the master of people who makes shows, producer of shows, Yerachmiel Begun, and he went with him because he felt that as a producer, he's also going to get him on shows. I wouldn't get him on shows.
And he got him on show before your album even came out. Look at that.
So that's what happened.
So
And-
which 6 songs? Do you remember?
Well, the Yerusa we put together in the base medish. I think
Right,
Srully, you found the words.
I found the words by Shalosh. It's from Zayar, the Kuna Zayar and
He's
Shalosh.
learning
Shadis.
Zayar already.
25 years old.
Taradas, he's learning Zayar.
25 years old in Taradas.
Sounds like Yossi Green already.
It was amazing.
So I was learning Zayar.
I was married, so it was okay. And I was like,
And,
if I'm putting out an album, I probably should know some Kabbalah in case it doesn't work out.
Yerusa, L'choil Amin, Ishtama Demandinat Shabbos, Commandinat, the whole thing. I don't want to say, I don't want to throw Zayars around over here.
Kids might be listening.
Yeah. But it's words that fit to the song. It was a niggin. Felt we needed words, and
That's it. He would come over to me in base medish between the Zman.
of course.
And he would
Bein-
say,
Bein
I see
Zman,
words
Bein
in
Zman.
there.
We were regular guys sitting and learning it. You weren't married, but I was in Koil.
All right, so that's one.
Yeah.
We have Hukla, we have
Hukla.
Kata, we have Shalom Aleichem. By the way,
Shalom
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem. It's a beautiful
Till this
song.
day, Malache Hashares, Malache Elyon.
It's Malache. It's what should it be?
And you said it was Malche.
Malche.
Well, you sung it,
It did it
Malach.
Nobody caught it, and it's on the album to this day.
Wow.
And you know what nobody caught of me? Hamalach HaGoel. I don't say,
B'Shem.
I start from B'Shem Aboisai. I don't do,
Amalach HaGoel. Let's make a Yivarechis and our...
V'karei v'hem shemi B'Shem Aboy. The words were just missing. Nobody realized till it's already
called
out in the stores.
creative,
And it fits in
like that.
perfect. I don't know why they were missing. So sometimes now I sing it live. I'll put in the
See, that's why
V'karei v'hem
Spotify
shemi.
and Internet's bad, because today you'd get like 15 angry. Hey, what are you doing here? You're butchering it. You're cutting it up.
Yeah. Poetic license,
Poetic license. I have a song on an album coming out with Srully Williger. I say, you do? He says, yeah. Sure enough, We Can Make It Right comes out, and he had one of the songs on the album.
Really? I don't. You know which one it was? Yes.
I think it's
Yossi, which
maybe
one
Chef
was it?
Shifleno?
Shep Shifley no Zach. That's his?
Either
No, I
that-
think that's a Big On
no,
song. I think
No,
it's
there's
a-
one other one. It was one or two songs.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'll look on the... You have the album here?
I don't have that one.
But,
That one he doesn't
I didn't
know.
produce that one, but
I was talking about the Huklal album.
Yes.
So we were pretty much done, and then Yitzy comes over to me with we had 10 songs already with another song.
Sameach.
Ah!
Oh my gosh.
So Yitzy...
Wait. I never
Yitzy
heard
comes...
this.
You don't know this. You probably don't even know
Oh,
this.
you
myself.
regretted it, man.
Yitzy comes over to me, has a song. Sameach, tis samach.
And we played it for Lamb.
What's that?
and
I went to
Rachmiel.
Lamb and Begun.
And they said,
And they said, you have a Huklal already. What? No.
and then Mendy
Wow.
got it.
And
Mendy got it, and
Sameach.
that was the
And
bum,
bada
bum, bum, da 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 da.
So
Two
Sameach
years-
is mine.
2 years later, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it was $1,000. It's probably too expensive.
No,
you know,
I
$1,000
wanted, remember we went to Lamb in the back over there in the
Yeah,
house,
of course I
sitting
remember
there
playing,
in this
yeah.
porch over there.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you listen to it.
So
So we
Okay,
were young,
okay.
you know. No, we
Yisrael
should have.
Srully Williger almost had. By the way, when did it change from Yisrael to Srully? I'm very confused about this whole thing. About the fifth album, right?
After the Zoya.
I have a better one. When did it change from Williger to Williger?
Right.
He spells it
He
differently.
wanted to make sure the checks didn't bounce.
No, it's just better for the I, W-I-L-L. But my name is
By the way,
W-U-L-L.
it sounds like a shit.
Oh, by the
thing.
way, Yerachmiel Begun, when he met me the first time, I introduced Aaron Zutler, heard
wow.
Pissuli,
Aaron
from You
Zutler.
the Green, you
Yeah,
know.
You the Green.
So Aaron Zutler heard it. You played him the demo that I made and came to Arvidas, and we recorded on our double cassette album. I recorded the music, and you added your voice on top of it. And I remember you played it to Aaron Zutler. Aaron Zutler says, I know Yerachmiel Begun. Let me show it to him. He calls me up, Yerachmiel Begun. I was maybe 16 years old, 17 years old at the time. He says to me, you know, you're 20 years ahead of your time. This is not typical Jewish music, but we'll see if we can find some way to get it out. And eventually you sang it at the Miami
Aaron Zutler was
Experience.
a shotgun to the
Aaron
Miami
Zutler was a
Experience.
shotgun
Wow,
for-
thank you,
for-
Aaron. Aaron
Interesting.
Daniel.
No. Actually, he introduced the song, and when Yerachmiel Begun asked me who do I think should sing it at the Miami Experience, I mentioned your name as the singer.
But you said you had a
one who sang the
connection to
demo.
Miami. When did you get to Miami?
I was an alumni as years earlier, but I guess he's
I
not going to
always
think
thought
about
your
me 10 years
entrance
later.
to Miami was the 100-men choir one. I always thought that was Shlomie's introduction to
You were
Miami.
in
was singing-
Miami Boys Choir?
I was in Miami Bus
You
Choir.
sang on a thing?
Which
On a-
albums?
I did not sing, the opposite of what he did. I did not sing on any album. I
Shlomie was
performed
the
in
live
concerts
show
for him.
guy.
Right.
That's right.
I did the solos. It
So
was
which
weird.
solos? Give me some songs.
I don't remember.
Oh, come on. You were
know
just
what I
singing
did?
632
What's the
Avenue.
other song? Hamalach and Hamapil. Hamapil Chevle Sheino. That was one of my songs that I
Wow.
loved and I did. But I went to Polanco, Mexico with him. We went to Midwest. We went. You're right. I never sang on a Miami album.
Really?
But
And obviously you kept that cash, Aaron.
I was a
And I
soloist.
sang one
yeah.
song. Remember, if that I sang one song in a Miami
the,
album.
the Yiddish song.
I wasn't in the choir.
Which
the,
song?
The Yiddish,
The Yiddish
song, the Gedolah Hadar.
on Klal Yisrael
Right.
together.
Klal Yisrael together.
That
Right.
album?
So I wasn't in the choir,
Right. I wrote a beautiful
but they were looking
solo.
for someone that could sing Yiddish.
Yiddish.
And they figured
Heimish.
Williger with
Heimish.
the W said he could probably sing
Right.
Yiddish.
So
No, then it was Williger. Now it's
Shlomie was singing Srully at the concert, the first Miami
I
experience.
remember experience.
And I remember that I had 400 friends there because they all knew Yitzy Ball's first song being debuted in 1990 at that concert.
90 or 91, yeah.
So Shlomie Dachs, young man, gets up. I don't think you ever performed that big of a performance before talent showcase. And I remember very clearly, I was standing with a bated breath, waiting to hear the orchestra play the song. Da 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 da. And all of a sudden, Shlomie starts to sing. You don't hear anything.
Really?
And my heart drops. My first song being debuted, and I'm oh my friend, and then nobody hears the song. I mean, they know the song,
Right.
but they didn't hear his voice, and he didn't realize the spotlight's on. I mean, he's not hearing.
Well,
the
you
sound.
usually don't
I'm
hear.
going crazy.
And he's going
I
crazy.
think I'm a star.
And
you're
nothing's
like-
going on. And finally, he gets it. Somebody gets his attention that his voice is not being heard. Like 20 seconds into the song, and Shlomie turns around. I couldn't believe that he had the guts to do this. Yisrael Lim is leading. It's a big orchestra, and Shlomie goes, "Stop!" And he stops the whole thing. He stops
did?
the music.
So I
he-
wasn't at the
and
show.
he started
And
again,
they
and we
gave
did
you
it
a new
again.
mic, and he restarted again.
You're talking about that. I had a story with many years later. I was singing in Brooklyn College. Kish Echad had just come out, composed by Yitzy Bald.
His third album.
I
yeah.
come onto stage, and in the front row, if you've ever been on a stage, you really can't see
No, 'cause
past
the
the
lights
first
are
or
blinding
second. You
in
could
your
see the
face,
first
yeah.
first row, second row. You know, the big spenders in the first row. Usually it's the Gavirim and everything. Anyway, and their kids. And all of a sudden they're screaming and they're cheering, and I'm feeling like $1,000,000. They're going crazy, and I'm thinking, "Wow, this is." And then I realized about a minute or two into the song that the reason why they were going like this, they were trying to get my attention. When I had run onto stage, my yarmulke had fell off, and they were trying to get my attention that your yarmulke is not on. There was some kind of cable coming down, and I hit it, and then I realized, wow, so you're not just a star, your yarmulke is, so I had to go put my yarmulke on. Pretty embarrassing.
So your debut album came out, and you're newly married. You're what? How old?
I'm going to be 25. I was a little younger than 25 when I got
so we're
married.
the same age.
Yeah, same age, yeah.
Were you nervous that Izzy put all this money into you, and you have no idea what it's going to be?
I was very nervous because you still want to make money. Number one, you want to do this. You want him to come back. You want to do a second one eventually. I already had songs. People were throwing songs at me at that point, and you want to be successful, and you want him to not to lose money. Now you're talking about Yenim's money, so it was a big pressure. But it's all the one above. And Baruch Hashem, like Yitzy said, there were
And you had
years
some
that
Yitzy
we
songs,
made a
too.
living. I had many Yitzy songs, absolutely. And the hit of that album was definitely Yerav, Hamalach, which was composed by Yisrael Baruch, who also today is in Rosh Koil.
Yeah.
And
Srully.
Chamoy was on that album. Srully was my second
This
album.
was your second album.
It's funny because I had Srully already, but I waited.
Yeah,
So I waited for the
that's why-
second
that's why
album.
I
I guess
mixed
I
it
wanted
up.
to wait. Maybe I
And
wanted to
Yerav,
wait.
you sang in 1989 on a Shevach 2 album,
Right, which sold I think like 11 or 12 copies.
maybe 11 or 12.
That's Avi Fishoff's album.
Yeah, but
Nobody
I actually
remembers.
arranged that song in Piamenta studio.
Wow.
My first arrangement, I was a teenager, and Rick Cutler was playing the drums there, and Shlomie came to sing in Piamenta studio in the basement over there.
Talking
Yerav.
about arrangements, if I could give you to Yitzy's horn, what's amazing about Yitzy is that the first few albums that I did, only my last album, right?
Avinu.
Only my last album was like 95% Yitzy and his
wasn't
arrangements.
Your last album. Echad was your last album.
Right, you did some Mizma, yeah. You added one album after
Right,
that.
I've had everyone. You're right.
By the way,
you
thanks-
know my album's better than
Thanks
I
to Yitzy, I actually have Shlomie Dachs singing some a cappella on that Avinu album. That's the only a cappella I have from Shlomie Dachs ever recorded.
right.
That's true. But anyway, what I was saying was he was a guy who made up songs and he gave it to you with his arrangement. So I went to Lamb. Lamb was my arranger.
He's like, "Oh,
And
just-
I played him Keshacha Bam Bam Ba, which was ahead of its time. And Lamb took his arrangement and made it into an arrangement. But
just the notes in terms
it was
of
Yitzy's arrangement. And Yitzy, was way ahead of his time. I mean,
So two 25-year-old new singers in the market. By the way, did you guys realize your debut albums both had English titles? Voice of a New Generation, One Day at a Time. I mean,
that's what they were
and
doing
that's
back
not
they
what
were
they.
doing. No
okay,
Jew will be left behind. That's what they were doing. Time is now.
Mashiach.
Mashiach. Yeah, I think it was then the in thing to do.
Letter to
Is that what it
Mashiach.
was?
Letter to Mashiach, Mayor Sherman.
Wow.
You know what the next album that he put out, Letter to Mashiach, was? Return for Postage.
Insufficient postage.
Then the albums were named after.
Did you
Today
guys
they're
have a
not.
say in the song selection or what the title track was, or not really?
Well, Srully really didn't, but I did. I mean, no. When you hire a producer, you want to make sure
You want their
you
feedback.
trust him. So I would sit with Yochi with every single song. This one no good. This, and there were songs that I regretted that I didn't take. Like it
Yeah.
happens. It happens.
No, let's go.
No, you never heard of them. I mean, that I wish I
nobody
took.
ever recorded them or not?
One of them I really can't say.
Oh.
I would love to, but for
This is for
different
Amud.
songs,
We're
for
trying to
different
raise money
reasons, I
here.
One song
can't.
that I had you took that I wanted that you ended up taking.
Which one?
Kol Barama? Kol Barama. That was also Akiva Hamnik. That was
So
Akiva
Cobra
Hamnik.
I wanted for some reason whoever I was working with at the time, I guess didn't want it, and I loved it.
It's
and
all Siyata Deshmaya. It's a mazel. You
And
take a
you had
song, you don't
excuse
know.
me, he had a song composed by Avram Fried. Do you know that?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oy, da,
Yeah,
da,
but I got it
da.
completed. Meaning, it's a song that he did it. He didn't make it on one.
But
of
it was
his
his own
albums.
song.
So I took the whole package.
You have an Avram Fried composition
Yes.
right there. That's something
was a
Shlomie
great
doesn't
song.
have.
Yeah.
That was a great
True.
How old were you when you were working on Mendy Wald's first album? Your first production, you and Mendy were what? Late teens, early 20s?
No, 25, 24.
25.
It was
And-
around the time when I lost my mother, and it was a very. I was when we
Emotional
were mixing
year.
Sameach. I still remember we were mixing Shifchi, which was one of the songs on Mendy Wald's album, and I got the phone call from my brother, come to NYU hospital, because my mother had been out of work already 3-4 months, and I found out at that time that she was in a very bad situation, and she passed away a year and 3 months later. But so we put out that album, Sameach, while she was sick, and I used to bring the album to her in the hospital, and she loved it. It was really fascinating. Then after she passed away, 9 months later, we put out L'chaim.
Were you not nervous?
What?
You're in charge of writing arrangements. You've never written arrangements for. How did you even write the arrangements back then? You know how to write music, Yitzy, or not?
I do know notes. I learned, like I said, I learned by accordion teachers.
Right.
I had my formal.
But I mean, you
music
have
training.
to envision a symphony. The brass is doing this, the drums. You guys know how this works. On your first album, you probably didn't have a clue, but after the albums were recorded, you go.
Who did the notations for you? Who did?
So I did the actually did the
wrote it?
notations. Now I wasn't perfect at it. I remember Jim Hines was like in the studio, was like, that note is way above what a trumpet could actually do, and he was telling me like, giving me criticism, but it was fine. I learned from it. I ended up learning a lot from the musicians who told me change this, change that. But the truth is, I mean, it's not too many people know. I actually arranged an album prior to Mendy Wald's, Copy El Bogans.
Right.
And it didn't come out till after his album, but I had arranged it already before.
It's a great album.
So I was arranging.
Title track's great.
So I was arranging a lot of.
You did notation. I'm saying because the rest of the world used Avrami Garari. Avrami G was the biggest notation, the biggest
then, too.
back then also.
You want to hear funny
It
now?
was,
There's a producer. There's more than one producer. I can tell you now, who doesn't know how to write music, and he tells the guy, "Okay, take your instrument, go da da da." Da-da-da-da.
Rami just does it, and that's
And this guy,
He
but this guy's
transcribed it,
directing musicians, and you're like,
Yeah, we know who it is. Just-
But the people want to know.
if we
Stay
break
tuned.
$8 million, I'll tell you next year.
Now, anybody who gives 100,000 or more, I will tell you who that is.
Private message.
No, so yeah, we were writing notes, and we wrote L'chaim. 9 months later,
That album was unbelievable.
Was very, very special.
What an album! What an
Smile
album!
Again, And again, it was a very emotional.
Wait, someone told me there's a
time.
good story behind Smile Again.
Smile, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've heard many stories after it came out. People will tell me this helped me, got me through this situation. But Smile Again was written together, myself and Yechiel Zegelbaum, Ziggy. Zegelbaum, he was a color war writer of words. So he helped me formulate the words that I wanted to write about my mother. This is literally right after she passed away. And interesting, the album was supposed to be called Chazak. But when I was going to the funeral of my mother in Eretz Yisrael, Avram Fried was on that flight, and he was calming me down, because he heard that I just lost my mother. And we were talking, we were schmoozing, and he's saying, I asked him, what are you working on now? He says, well, I'm putting out an album in a month. I asked him, what's the album called? He says, Chazak. And I knew that we had a great song, Chazak, on Mendy Wald's upcoming album. So we had to change it. We changed it into L'chaim. But on that album was a song called Smile Again. And what happened is that one time, I mean, Shlomie knows, and Srully knows, and Mendy Wald knows, there was a woman in the community, unfortunately, I believe at age 44, that was paralyzed. And the doctors didn't know if she can actually respond or understand anything. After a couple of weeks, they saw that she was blinking her left eye. And people used to come and visit her. And this lady at the Reza, she communicated with her left eye. And when I came in the first time, they said, okay, read line A, and it has A, B, C, D next to it. She'll blink at the line to show you which letters she's trying to say.
I think Yitzy Horowitz works the same way nowadays.
Yes, exactly.
And Mendy Wald was there in the room. I still remember this. We were called to perform for this at the Raise. A lot of singers were called. And I remember it took me 5 minutes just for her to say the word welcome. I ran out of the house and I was crying. I couldn't believe, wow, what a person has to do just to communicate one word. And when we started singing, she actually told us she wants us to sing Smile Again. And remember, this lady can only blink her left eye.
So it's like a 15-minute conversation of hitting all the letters on the chart.
Correct. And she said, please, I didn't even know she knew this song. And we get up to the high part. In the blink of an eye, all our suffering could end. And I'll never forget, tears were streaming from her left eye, when we said in the blink of an eye, all our suffering could end.
Wow. So that's how she was able to communicate. That's amazing.
That song was so meaningful to her. She asked us to play it every single time we came to her.
That's another whole angle that I'll speak from on behalf of everyone, all singers, how we can't take for granted life. And we as singers have that unbelievable opportunity to go to hospitals and to sing for people, and anybody else would. I believe if someone called an accountant during the day, hi, come visit someone at NYU or Sloan Kettering, they would go, but you're not calling an accountant. So we get lucky, anybody would do it. We're not grace, but we have that opportunity. And we have the conversation. It's special. We get to go and we get to be mechazik people. We take for granted that we could walk, we could talk. Every bracha we make, there are people so sick, and we have that lucky, amazing schos, in addition to Hashem giving us a talent, that we can go and be mechazik and bring smiles to people. It's an incredible thing, and we don't take it for granted. We know how special that is.
Many invitations, I'm sure Shlomie also got, with an inscription that you promised that I had last year, from 25 years ago, a boy got married recently, that's well now, that said that he was a little kid when I sang for him, and a note came in and a text, and the guy sent me a screenshot of what I wrote in the hospital, that Emet Hashem, when you get married, I'm going to come sing at your chasana. I wrote that once, and I'm going to come sing at your wedding, Emet Hashem, to a girl in Memorial, Sloan Kettering, and she calls me up, and my house phone those days, and she said, I want you to come sing at my wedding.
When you were still listed.
Where's the wedding? In Italy.
Wow.
So I called up Yossi from Traveler's Choice, and he gave me a ticket, and I went.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a 10-year-old kid, Mordechai Ben David, called me up, asked me to play music in Borough Park, a Hasidic kid. I remember going up the stairwell, and he had Kreislich Pius, this little kid, and when we got to his hospital bed, Lalenu, he had no hair on, nothing. And I still remember we started singing songs, and what was funny is at that bedside, unfortunately the boy didn't make it past his bar mitzvah. They asked me to play by the bar mitzvah 3 weeks before he passed away. Right. But what happened prior to that was Mordechai Ben David was telling me he's flying to Israel the next day, and he's recording an album with Mona Rosenblum, Mona Rosenblum, in the studio, and he's missing this Geschmack of Freilich song. And at that kid's bedside, I started singing in front of Mordechai Ben David a song that he never heard before. Emesata, Huri Shoin, Emesata,
And he took it.
Emestas is Emestas. He loved it. We started singing for the kid 100 times. I'm exaggerating, but a lot of times. And he took out his little recorder, whatever.
$1,000? How much?
Yeah, $1,000. I think you paid me a little quicker, but he paid me. And what's funny is he said he took the recording, he brought it to Israel. Now Moshe Monroe, I'm talking about a great arranger.
Yeah.
He's incredible. His arrangements, 50 years ahead of his time. He was like not normal. And he goes ahead. He shows him this song, Moshe Monroe. He liked it so much, Moshe Monroe. In the studio the next day, Mordechai Ben David told me he started writing the notes on tissue papers.
He's known to do that.
He made the
He does
whole
that a
arrangement
lot.
on tissue papers, and they played it that day in the studio. The next day it was recorded.
With the intro?
With the intro.
That's yours? No.
No, that's Moshe Monroe Rosenblum's. All put together in within 24 hours.
Recorded.
Crazy.
And that's
But that's part of what we were saying, how it's a mazel, these songs. I could tell you stories. Rachem from
at a
Shweki, he got late into the album, and not only that, he put it as song number 7 or 8 on the album.
It was not in the beginning.
He didn't think it. Usually, you put it the second song or right away in the beginning.
And you're lucky enough that Suki
and then all of a sudden
puts
that
out
becomes.
an album, Sikarachim, a few years later.
So we don't know what songs are gonna make it and which songs. It's all.
We can be
Very
here.
true. Very
we can
true.
be
We can be
here
here for hours.
We can be here
This
for
is
the
not a
next 2
joke.
hours. We got a few minutes left. So
When you're making your album, you think every single song is a hit.
is that really? No, is that
course.
That's your
true?
intention.
Of
Really?
course.
That's
You think I'm
song
going to put
number
a song
10.
that we don't like? Everything is
Yeah.
not.
Of course, it's not
By the
every
way, Chef
single
Shiflenu, I knew was a hit.
Well, we put it number one.
That album is by far one of my.
That one?
yeah,
That
that
one you
one.
got the
Yeah,
ah
yeah,
from,
yeah,
right?
That is for
You
sure.
start the ah.
That is for sure probably my
For sure.
favorite album from you. For
Yeah.
you, it was probably Achen was probably my favorite album.
Very nice. That's when I went with Yossi Green.
And for you,
that was special.
L'chaim is probably. It has to be L'chaim, right? Yeah. From all of Mendy Wald's albums?
Hands down.
I mean, no.
I
yes,
mean,
you
and then we
produced
did
other
Avinu
people.
together, and we had a few nights.
That's a
Like
great
Imesh
story, too.
Kachech, it seems like forever.
It's a lot of vocal
arrangements. Wow. He sang it by my chuppah.
That was,
Okay, so a few
in
minutes
Chicago.
left. We're going to go fast, okay? Voice lessons. Are they true? Do you need them? Give me some funny stuff you do to get ready from back in the day.
Well, voice lessons is a must, and it's you have to have the foundation. I mean, you can't create a voice out of nowhere. You have to have a voice.
My mommy says I sing well.
Right. So, but if your mommy says you sing well, you should take voice lessons. The main thing of voice lessons is what I think is, besides one of my voice teachers was Cantor Nassim Galik, a very famous voice teacher, is when you're not feeling well and you have to get your voice from
I always thought it
somewhere.
was
when you're
projecting.
Okay, when you're there's 50 things, there's
Right.
50 facets to voice lessons. But I find voice lessons is when you do have that little cold, when you do a little hoarse, when you are a little down vocally, that's where you really go back into your voice lesson mode and say, I got to do this, I got to do
So
that.
who call comes
Before-
out? You got a big gig, a big concert. What are you doing to warm up?
To warm up? Like now, in front of everybody?
Yeah, in front of everybody.
Well, that's a whole, you only have a couple of minutes left. But there's things, loosen up.
Yeah, let's see. Come on.
Chewing.
You serious?
Yeah, some crazy stuff. Whatever. It's like,
No. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Loosen up your like stuff like that. Go from falsetto to regular.
But your mouth isn't even
But you know what the
open.
best thing for the voice is? Bottom line
Yes,
is
Shlomie, raw eggs.
sleep, good sleep, and just to drink room temperature water. I
No.
tell
Not
all these
very
guys
hot,
who call
not
me,
very
not very
cold.
hot,
I
not very
found
cold.
Isaac Honig's,
Good
special
sleep before you
Might work.
perform. A few nights before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, you don't just wait. You go to sleep. Sleep is the best thing for the
Shlomi,
voice.
come on.
That's
Give me,
the
some, give
bottom
me some
line.
tricks. Give me some tricks. Give me some exercises,
No
Shlomi.
tricks. I go to Cantor Einhorn for many, many years. I went to Cantor Einhorn, where Avram Fried goes, and today Shlomie Daskal goes. And people tell me, what do you need voice lessons? You're a professional already. What does Derek Jeter or what do batting coaches need? What do these guys need? You need someone, hadracha, watching what you're doing. And like Srully said, when you're not feeling well, that's when the pressure's on to get it properly over the cold and be able to perform. You can't just cancel Rosh Hashanah.
So
I
this
think
way,
Avram Fried plays basketball a few times a week to keep in shape.
I actually
think
saw
he's
there was
told-
a-
he's
He actually
told-
told me he has potato cocoa before to lubricate. Before he sings, he
there
has
was a video of him.
That's what he actually
There
told
was
me.
a video of him throwing a ball
Camp
from I think half
Aguda, he had
court or
102
something.
fever. I got him to come to a concert in Camp Aguda in 2001, 2002. The year prior, Mordechai Ben David. Next year, I got Avram Fried to come to Aguda for a very good price. And he comes to Camp Aguda, and he calls me up an hour before the show. He says, Yitzy, I got to cancel. I have 102 fever. I said, Avram, you can't cancel. I mean, the whole camp is waiting for you.
It's Camp
He says,
Aguda.
"Really?"
Sorry for that.
I guess I wasn't available to.
You weren't available that night. He comes in to the gym, and with 102 fever, he goes to the half-court line, running in. He picks up a basketball in the gym. He gets the half-court shot in the first time.
I just
I
saw
just saw a clip.
recently. You
I just saw a
it.
video. I don't know if it was from that.
Yeah,
No, it wasn't
incredible.
from
Maybe
that.
he's
But
the new
he-
from NBA guy instead of the other guy.
Apparently, he believes in the exercising and keeping in shape, like Shlomie mentioned. And
This
and
late in your careers, is it still important? And how often are you
Very,
supposed to go?
even more, very.
Even more important.
Really?
Absolutely.
Really interesting.
Just breath, that you're not out of breath when you're singing. Especially, I do weddings. Next stage of our lives now. I'm doing now weddings, and I'm performing. And you have to. If you're not in the studio, you could do it 25 times till it's perfect. Do a studio.
ripening with age doesn't apply to voices.
No, you do a
As
wedding,
you get older, you have
you're
to-
live.
And for
know?
you, do you have to, keep rehearsing with your
I
fingers?
practice a lot. I practice a lot in the basement.
And Yitzy's still writing,
Absolutely, still
New York
writing.
Boys Choir,
That's right.
fourth album,
Baruch
fifth
Hashem,
album, because it was a
piano.
cappella album. Sorry, I forgot about the cappella album.
And Shlomie said it right. The choirs really give the confidence to the kids. I had a kid from a very frum school who typically not all schools want this, but the parents made a decision and they said that they felt it was very good for the kid. A very shy kid. He was like second, third grader. He stayed in my choir for 4 or 5 years. Started laning, started davening for the Amud. He started answering questions in class. Really brought out a tremendous. So I only have good things to say about.
You were in a choir, and now you lead a choir, so definitely that's important. Shlomie has the Shlomie Dachs Orchestra, which is funny because you kind of had an orchestra back in the day. So,
Hashem, now one guy out of the way a little bit.
so it's funny.
I try to book him for after the wedding. I try to
the
book him.
truth.
Yes.
When Shlomie opened the orchestra, people were really skeptical. They're like, "There's the Gina, there's the Shama. You're a singer. You can't open an orchestra." And now we're what? Almost 20 years later, Shlomie Dachs Orchestra is still a contender. And then we
Hashem, Baruch Hashem.
and then we have Srully Williger, who's not only a singer, a Karlbach singer, a Kumsitz guy, a shtickle cantor,
Plays guitar, by the way, a little
plays
bit.
guitar,
A little bit,
and now he's doing English Patchanas. Did you hear this?
Amazing.
Brilliant.
English.
You were at one of them.
I was at one of them, and I was surprised.
And people think, hip hop, big deal. You know how much preparation is involved?
I thought I'd hate it, but I actually liked it. It was actually pretty good.
Thank you.
Amazing.
But I think it's more your personality than your rhymes.
Yeah, true.
I'm just saying. Thank you, everybody. On behalf of, first of all, thank you, Yitzy, Shlomie, and Srully.
Thank you.
You can find their music online pretty much anywhere. If you can't, message
free.
me for free. Oh, well,
That's right.
don't steal their music. Please support the amazing work that Amudim does. Head over to unitedtoheal.com. Please support this amazing cause, and we hope to see you next year.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys.